Morro Bay. That was tough. I have to say that was tough. That was on Sunday, May 19th at the 2024 IronMan 70.3 in Morro Bay. And we're here to talk about what really happened at the swim and why were there so many athletes who did not finish, including myself. I was part of a relay team and I was doing the swim course. By the way, shout out to the FilAmTri, Filipino American Triathlon Club, who we represent, and also shout out to my teammates, Arlen. Thanks again for inviting me and asking me to be part of your team. And we're here to continue to support you in your journey back into racing Ironman. I know we're going to have a couple more, many more opportunities to do this again, especially here in California. So yeah, we're psyched. We're happy that you're back racing, and you are, as you recovered from that terrible injury a couple of years ago. So yeah, and then also shout out to Adele. If she didn't, come to me and ask me to be part of this team, I wouldn't probably have been there. So I'm just happy that we got to experience this as a team, even though the circumstances of what happened at the swim didn't allow you guys to continue on and get to that finish line with that medal, right? So, but thanks again for your understanding and your support. I'm going to start from the beginning, where I seated myself at the beginning of the swim. And I am not a powerful swimmer. I'm not the fastest swimmer. I'm a recreational athlete, so I go into this Ironman events to finish it. That's just my main goal. I know it's not going to be for getting at the top of an age group or whatsoever. I'm a realistic person. That's who I am, right? And so knowing how I swim, I seed myself always towards the back, right? So I started a little later, or a lot later than everyone else. So I don't know what the conditions were earlier for those who swam earlier, and those of us who were at the back end of this swim course. But here's how it began. I mean, when I got into the water, I was at the 55. I think that's the time, the seeding, meaning that's the if you expect to finish at around 15 minutes, 55 minutes, you kind of seed yourself at that spot, right? So that's where I placed myself with Jonathan, and we started together, and we got in the water together, and everything was fine. Of course, the water was cold. That was that was announced the night before at the Ironman Village, and during the athlete briefing, and again they mentioned that in the morning. So it was around 54, 57 range, right? So when we got in the water, I was wearing my booties, and I also had an extra neoprene cap underneath my the green cap. So for me, it felt tolerable with those added layers. So getting the water was calm at that point. The swimmers were getting a nice groove. I was getting into a nice rhythm. I have this, I keep this beat in my head when I'm swimming that I follow. I just kind of like, that's my this is my stroke, right? So I'm never rushed, so I don't rush myself. So I don't, that's just how I calm myself. I have this beat in my head, and so far so good. And really, just to give you an idea, for those who have swam in like a cove, like aquatic park here in San Francisco, it was like that. So it was calm, right? No big waves coming at you, nothing like that compared to an open ocean swim. Let's just say like when I did Hawaii. Yeah, of course, there were waves that, that would just come at you. But this one was fine. Coming out, we were, just swimming fine. No one was struggling. Everyone was just, kind of keeping their own rhythm. And Jonathan, when we were talking right after the race, he said that he passed me and then he kept going. So I didn't see him, of course, because I was just like kind of mentally just kind of focused at that point. And yeah, I come to, the yellow buoys on my right. I come to the first 100, the second, and then the third, and then I'm just about to turn. This was at the turning point, the red buoy. I see that. I make that turn, and then sorry, I just gotta pause it right there. I have this tickle in my throat. Okay, so I make that turn, and as soon as I make that turn, I see the next red buoy. Right, so that's my next target. So I sighted that. That's where I'm going. But then the next time I, went to do my sighting, I see this group of people, group of athletes, swimmers, right? And I'm talking about maybe 8 of them hanging on. There was this like a pier buoy, or not buoy, post, right? The metal post that sticks out of the water, and they have the yellow or orange flags on top. So there was a kayaker who was next to that, and then he was towing a paddle board, a board behind him, and there were like 6 or 8 people hanging onto it. That's the first thing I noticed on the way to the next red buoy. And then I sight it again, and then I see a group of people, because I'm now trying to turn right to go back, because I feel like I'm not getting closer to that next red buoy. And as soon as I make that little turn, I started my breathing again. I see a more group of swimmers who are swimming. They're swimming. There are others who are hanging onto a board on the side next to that post. And underneath this post, there was a kayaker. He had a paddleboard in the back, and there were like probably 5 or 6 athletes, swimmers, hanging onto this board. And you do see that, but not that many. And they were hanging onto it. So I guess he was just using the post to kind of just keep himself in place. And he was just like right there. Like, here's the post, here's the kayaker, and the board was like right next here. And then there were, a group of swimmers next to it, hanging onto it. So, of course, you see that in like, seconds, and you just kind of try to process everything that's going on around you. You don't think like, okay, whatever is happening, because you see that in races, like I said, but you don't really see that many, folks hanging on, especially in this kind of, at that point I was thinking this kind of calm water, maybe they just got tired, right? That's just what my thought was. So I keep going, and next thing I know, I see like this group of swimmers again, and now they're, like just trying to swim and next to me, and there's like probably like 20 of us at this point, 20 plus, at least from my, again, recollection, right? Your perspective is a little bit different when you're in the water versus when you're on top looking at it from a distance, right? So, but from my recollection, there was probably like a group of 20 swimmers swimming alongside of me at this point. And you just kind of don't realize, or I didn't realize, what was going on at that point until I was actually right next to one of the white boats that was docked there. And then in that moment, I didn't know that the boat was docked. I just thought that the boat was actually moving alongside of me, right? Like, so I was right here, I was here, and the boat was kind of like right here. It's like a fishing boat, right? So I try to keep swimming. I kind of moved past that, and I was trying to aim for the next buoy, the red buoy. I don't know why, but there was no explanation in my mind at that moment. Why, after making that right turn, why did the red buoy just suddenly became, like, did it move? It moved further, because I felt like I was further away from it. So I just kind of tried to navigate my way back, and the closest thing to me, because I felt like, like this boat was moving alongside of me. And so I targeted the next closest thing to me, which was that post where everyone was hanging on to that board. So I was trying to get to that, because the next buoy was another, a couple more yards next from that post was another, couple more yards further down to the next red buoy. So I was targeting that post where everyone was, right, where I saw them initially. So if you can imagine, you were turning right this way, and this was the post. And the next thing you know, you see them right there, and you're kind of like, why am I? And then here's the red buoy. And then I'm trying to swim back because I'm trying to aim for the red buoy, but this is the first thing that you see. So I'll just try to swim here. So anyway, long story short, I started to realize that this boat that was, that I thought who was following me was actually docked, because there was a white buoy in front of it and there was a rope. And it dawned on me, it's not the boat that's moving, it was me. I was actually getting pulled back and forth next to this boat. I ain't going nowhere. So that's when I decided to give a little bit more power just to get to that post, right, that I saw that was sticking out where everyone was hanging out initially. And then, at this moment, probably I've been in the water for 30 minutes now, right? And so I get to the post, I try to grab onto it. But at this moment, the swimmers who were hanging on with the kayaker were gone. I don't know where they went, but they were gone. No one was there. I grab on to the post, kind of scratch myself. There were a lot of barnacles on this metal post. So, I thought to myself, I can't keep coming back here and try to grab this thing because I'm going to keep scratching myself, right? So I grabbed onto the ladder, because there's a ladder that's hanging next to the post. I grab it. One hand wasn't enough to secure myself, so I had to grab two hands because I felt the current underneath me. Because if you grab with one hand, you'll slip off with your grip. So I had grabbed because it was wet. So I grabbed on, and I literally I could feel myself go sideways like this. Like the current was really trying to pull me off this ladder. So that's realization number 2, that this thing ain't a joke. There's something going on here. So I let go. I try to swim again, and then there was a kayaker first that I came to, where I wasn't trying to grab on or anything. There was a gentleman, a swimmer, who was holding on to this kayaker. She was trying to, kind of keep him calm. This was, really, like, if you ever watched Saving Private Ryan, there's a lot of stress, like post-traumatic stress from this whole thing, this whole experience, because that one athlete, he was in tears, he was emotional. I could understand why, and but he was just saying sorry repeatedly. And whoever this kayaker, hope you watch this, and everyone else who was there, who volunteered to be on, to help out, all the kayakers, the paddle boaters, lifeguards, everyone on the jet ski, the rafts. Thank you so much, by the way. You guys were great. Every yell for help. You guys didn't get overwhelmed. I know it was overwhelming, but it seemed like you guys were just on top of everything, and you guys were just on to the next and the next, and you guys were just kind of, saving everyone who were struggling at that moment, at that point, including this gentleman. He was really just emotional and saying sorry. He was crying, he was in tears, and he was saying sorry. And the kayaker, she was very nice, and she was like, no, don't be. This is, this is really hard. This is really hard. This is, you got to the point where, it's really, really hard. And, he was still crying. But, at that moment, you're just kind of like, try to keep yourself focused, right? Not to get distracted. But it was just difficult because the next moment you hear someone yelling for help, and, they grab on, and man, it was just chaos, right? And I actually ended up right next to someone on a board. He wasn't a paddle boarder, but like a long surfboard, and he was just like, and then he told me he was a lifeguard, and he asked me if I need to rest or if I'm gonna call it, because at that point I think I've been in the water for probably like 40 minutes, right? And he did, just told me that there's if I want to rest, there's a orange buoy that he's tugging behind him, and I could just hold on to it. So I did. I shouldn't have, because he was stopped. So when I grabbed onto that buoy, we got pushed back, and the boat that I was talking about went like this. So, and he tried to kind of paddle as hard as he could just to keep next to this boat, but we were getting pushed back. He told me to get on his board. I went like this, and then he told me, no, swing your legs over, get on top of the board, because I told him that I was at that post in between the red buoys. I was there, and I'm not gonna call it yet. I said, I want to go back there, and I want to think about it. And then so he was like, yeah, that's when he told me to get on his board, and then he told me to go on top of the board like this, right? So I swung my legs over. My legs were like at the back of the board, and there were two handles at the front. So I grabbed on like this, and then he got on top like this. So this was me, then this was him, right? So his head was on my butt, and that's what he actually said. And he's a lifeguard. He said, yeah, this is what lifeguards do. My chin is on your butt. I said, sir, this is the least of my worries. And we just kind of like, quietly, he just tried to paddle me back to that post. And, for a good couple of minutes, he was trying to do that, but we weren't really going any closer to it. And so, I think, that's when he kind of just probably just realized that this is not going to happen. So he raised his hand, and then one of the jet skis came over, one of the officials. He told him what's the plan. Like, I'm trying to get to that post. That's where I was. He's just trying to get me back there. And they said, yeah, that's fine. And then he said, can you give us a tug? Because, we're not going anywhere. It was very hard, especially with two people on that board, right? So, and then with that riptide pulling us back. So yeah, we got tugged back to the post. I'm back where I was, holding onto that ladder, right? And when you're holding on to that, you can kind of see what's happening around you. I got again another view of this really futile, attempt to escape that tide, that current that's pulling everyone back. Because I literally saw, swimmers just swimming in place as hard as they could. They were just swimming in place. It's like when you're at the gym, you're running on a treadmill, you look to your left, you look to your right, they're still there. They're not going any faster than you, or, they may get slower than you, but they're still next to you. That's just like how it felt like. They're swimming on a, treadmill. They were just there. They're not going anywhere. And you hear a lot of cries for help. So I think, because we've been in the water for, at this moment, I would say almost going 50 minutes, 45 minutes. I'm just guesstimating. It felt like forever, of course, when you're there. Again, totally different perspective when you're in the water, right? But yeah, so it just seemed like an eternity there. So I was just holding on to it, trying to assess my next move. And a kayaker, she came right over next to me, and she said, hang on to my kayak. And I said, she was a little bit forward, further away from me, about 2-3 feet. I said, if I let go, I'll get swept back, so I won't be able to grab your kayak. And she was trying to, paddle forward because she was being pushed back too. So she kind of stopped paddling for a little bit. She kind of moved back further next to me. And then I let go. I grabbed the kayak, and I was giving her my story. And then before I could even finish, there was another cry for help, which, I couldn't see where it was coming from because I was at the back of her kayak. And, it was a female athlete, and she was struggling. She was crying for help. She was literally crying. And, she found her. She called for another paddle boarder because the lady couldn't grab onto her kayak because it was a little higher. So the paddle boarder kind of came over right away. And this is, again, kudos again to these volunteers, to the lifeguards, and everyone else who were helping out at the swim course. You guys were great. Can't say anything about that. You guys were just ready. And there were, so many of you, and there were so many of us who were struggling. And you guys were there. So anyway, so she helped out the other paddleboarder, helped out this lady, and the kayaker whose kayak I was holding on to, asked me if if I'm going to call it, or I'm going to keep on trying. And before she asked me that, I already asked myself that, because I figured that it's already almost 40 plus minutes, and the conditions are going to be like this heading back. You're fighting against the current. The cutoff is 1 hour 10 minutes. So if I was there at minute 50, and I never made it to the next red buoy, it's going to probably take me more than another 30 plus minutes just to get to the next 300 yards. I don't know, that's just how it felt like. So I said, rather than risk getting hypothermic, because at that point the water, yeah, it felt cold. You really want to be just in and out of the water, right, at this moment, because the longer you stay in the water, the more you get exhausted, and you're fighting fighting the current and then fighting the cold. That's what happened to most folks who had an emergency evacuation from there. I think it was because of hypothermia, because of being in the water for so long. Now, again, I'm just assuming that, but that's just from my perspective. Once again, I haven't really checked in on how many folks were evacuated, but I did see a lot of folks being taken out of the water. And again, now going back to myself, how I ended up getting pulled out was the raft that was pulling everyone out came over to take the lady out of the water, the one who cried for help, who was next to us. But the raft had to circle around, and it came around the kayak that I was holding on to. And they asked me first if I was going to call it or keep trying. And the sound on their voice was really like, if you keep trying, this is what's going to happen, kind of like that, right? So I just said, yeah, get me out, like that. The guy pulled me onto his raft, gave me a little tap on the back, yeah, just that was it. And then the lady who cried for help, she got pulled up next. They kind of struggled with her, and then she got on, and she just kind of like crumpled like this, like in a fetal position, like sitting down. And I tried to talk to her because she looked like she was really exhausted. But I asked her, hey, where are you from? I couldn't understand what she was saying because she was kind of shivering. And then I asked her, what's her name? I was just trying to talk to her because she seemed like she was like really, really shivering. And I said, hey, how many times have you done this? And then she raised her hand, like 2 fingers. So I was just talking to her, and then next thing you know, just another guy get pulled up. I recognized him from the athlete check-in the day before. He was part of the team, the club that was ahead of us during the check-in. They were also doing a relay. Shout out to the Filipino American cycling team, FACT, from Fresno. Eric, I'm talking about you. And he's a friend of Ireland way back in New Jersey. So they know each other. And I didn't realize, or didn't find this out until we were talking on the way back from as soon as we got on the dock, right? Anyway, so we were just kind of like talking and telling them that, hey, you know what, it's we had a bad day. This is unforeseen, and we just kind of move on to the next one. Yeah, he was feeling bad because he was supporting his team who was doing this event for the first time. They've the cyclist on his relay team doing an Ironman for the first time in a relay, right? And then the runner also is doing an Ironman for the first time, and they wanted to do it all, finish it all. But yeah, it's I'm sure there are a lot more folks who who had other motivation to be there and weren't able to complete that goal. But yeah, again, we got back, we walked back, ran into a lot more folks who were walking back, who got taken off the water. I just talked to everyone there. And then, of course, at that moment when we reached the close to the transition, that's where I have that video that was taken by Edu. There were a couple of emergency situations where swimmers had to be taken into an ambulance. I think again that's exhaustion, hypothermia, all of that factored in because yeah, man, that was a tough swim. I would probably say that I would rather swim against a wave coming at you than this riptide current, whatever you call this, because you cannot really see it above the water. There, you don't know how to plan for it. You don't know where to attack it. You don't know where to angle yourself. At least when you see a wave, you know where to bob and weave, right, and just kind of how to strategize, against the wave. With this riptide or current or whatever is going on or happened there was just nothing that could prepare you for that except just keep on swimming, right? Keep on swimming. If your life depended on it, yeah, keep swimming, just quick swim to the shore or whatever. But this one, you have to swim through this thing. Imagine that. It's like, a blast of energy trying to push you back, and you're just trying to come at it. That's how it felt like. So anyway, it's getting a little warm. Yeah, I just want to say that, there's really nothing wrong with the course, with the swim course. I mean, Morro Bay is an excellent host town. The host city of Morro Bay was amazing. It's amazing. I cannot say enough about the hospitality. There's just a different vibe to the customer service. For example, at our hotel, at the restaurants, right? Even the convenience store where we bought our bottles of water, they were just very hospitable. They say pleasantries, and when you come in, they say pleasantries. When you leave, when they're not, when you have a question, they're not like, you're really interrupting me. I'm on my time right now. You're on my time right now. Why are you asking me? They're not like that. They're really going to take the time to answer your question and be very pleasant about it. And I heard the run course was great. The bike course is great. There were some hills, but if the swim part, again, I don't think anyone imagined that that would happen there. But now that this is year 2 and you kind of have that knowledge of this could happen, I want to see how that changes, for next year. So anyway, I want to thank again everyone for being there, the FilAmTri family, our club, Filipino American Triathlon Club, all the other Filipinos who were there. Morro Bay, if you haven't researched it, is a very historical city for us Filipinos. There's just some backstory to that. And don't get dissuaded by this story about the swim. I'm pretty sure there's going to be some minor changes there for next year. And I'm not going to do Morro Bay next year. I have other plans. But yeah, that definitely a great city, great host, and a nice course there. So yeah, can't say anything more good things about it. Probably they're going to be a lot, they're going to be more prepared for next year as far as emergency situations. All right, well, that's it. Thank you so much. For those of you, if you're brand new again to our channel, be sure to follow or subscribe to get all our videos. And there's going to be another video coming up, the full highlights from our trip to Morro Bay for this IronMan 70.3 Morro Bay. We have more of these videos coming up. And if you made it this far in my video, thank you. I tend to ramble on, especially when I'm winging it. This whole thing, I just winged it. And I try to keep it as concise as I can, but there's just a lot of stuff that happened, that I hope I recalled it as best as I could and shared it as best as I could have. So thanks again for watching, and for Boodle Sports Network. I'm G. See you on the next one.